Help to Buy scheme from somebody who has used it. Okay, so there've been a couple different schemes called Help to Buy scheme, and there's also a Help to Buy ISA, which can make it confusing for some people. So I am talking about the Help to Buy equity scheme, where the government will help you buy a new build property. This is what we use at the age of like 23, 24, 25, my partner and I, to get onto the property ladder and to be able to live in like a decent house instead of a one-bed flat or a small house somewhere in a different part of town that we're not so keen on. Let me know in the comments if you'd like me to do a video on the Help to Buy ISA, because I know these can be really difficult, but we also use that as well. So coming from somebody who has used it and how that works, let me know in the comments if you want to see that, and I'll do that for you as well. In 2017, we decided to put a deposit down on a house that wasn't built yet, so it was a new built house. So that is what the Help to Buy scheme is all about, really, is trying to get people into new built homes. Obviously, new built homes have a little bit of inflated price. So I guess in the past, they've seen that people are not buying new built houses as much as they are second-hand houses, especially with a new build estate. You can't really decide where you want to live. If you want to use the Help to Buy scheme, you do have to go and find those new build sites in order to do so. So yeah, we'd been looking for a property throughout 2016. We couldn't seem to find anything we liked. Our budget was fairly small, mainly because of the deposit that we had. So I had been saving throughout uni, my partner not so much. So we didn't have that 50-50 deposit to go into a property that we really liked, really. That was the downfall of this, because we were still quite young, fresh out of uni. We were looking at renovation projects, we were looking at one-bed flats, so there are lots of different options going around. We knew that we didn't really want a flat because they come with a lot of service charges, which just increase your monthly outgoings, and it doesn't really pay off any mortgage, it doesn't increase in value, it is literally just dead money paying those maintenance fees. We did want a renovation project, but again, we were really limited on what borrowers we could use, because we needed like a 5% deposit really if we were going to use some of my money to do the renovation, and then we needed a deposit as well. So for us, the best thing to look at was the Help to Buy scheme. It was kind of a no-brainer. There were some scary stories out there about it. Yeah, lots of different people's opinions and views. And, you know, even just one of my friends has been through the Help to Buy process. And for her, it was difficult and it wasn't a nice process, which I can talk about a little bit later on in terms of selling the property. But for us, it has worked out really well. It's exactly what we needed to get onto the market. And yeah, so far we've really had a pretty good experience with it. I think because we really taught ourselves what it was about before we got into it. There could be some nasty surprises if you don't really educate yourself onto what you're getting into first. The property that we decided to buy in 2017, which wasn't going to be ready until the end of the year, was a house that was a 3-bed house, brand new, in an up-and-coming area in like close to the city centre. So even though we weren't really familiar with this area, we knew that it was up and coming and that we'd probably make some money on the house if we did buy it brand new regardless. So we bought the house for 225. So, you know, normally you would need a 25 grand deposit, but on this one, because we used Help to Buy, we only needed a deposit of 11,250. So that is literally £5,625 each. That's not a lot of money, really. You know, a master's degree that I went on was 5 grand. So, you know, to buy a house for 5 grand is not that much. Plus that meant that we would have had more money to be able to furnish the place and still go on holidays and do whatever we want at the age, whatever, you know, in our early 20s. So this example meant that we would be borrowing 45,000 off Help to Buy Wales. And then we would need to get the following from a mortgage company, which I think it was 168,750. So that's what we needed to find. So if we have a look at that now, we would have leased, you know, the minimum salary that we'd need to be on each was 18,750 each. So you can see that it is pretty affordable for somebody who, yeah, you might be starting out straight from uni. Yeah, you might be on a part-time salary or just low income in general. So 18 grand a year each is all you need to get a 225 property with Help to Buy, which I think is amazing. You know, we were looking at, we didn't want to max our borrowing, you know, and things like that. So yeah, if you got a 3-bed new build, or a 1-bed flat, or a 2-bed house somewhere that we didn't want to live, for example. And even though we might not have chosen this area on the first instance, it was a 3-bed house in an okay area. So I think we were pretty set that this was a good idea. In Wales as well, at the time, the maximum you could buy a property for was 300 grand. And yeah, in 2017, like, that was quite a, you know, a decent amount of money for a property. Like, you would be getting something in a nice area for that much. But yeah, this is now dropped, and I think it's because if you can afford a 300 grand house, you don't really need to use Help to Buy. That's what I believe anyway. It would help you get a nicer house, but I really don't think you would need to use Help to Buy. I think the scheme should be there for people who are young, trying to get on the ladder. I think that's kind of like what it really is for. And as well, when you're in a new build, you don't really have to worry about renovation costs. You've got brand new boiler, brand new radiators. So there is a lot less of a liability when you move into a new build home. So yeah, in a nutshell, Help to Buy allowed us to buy a 3-bed property when we could only really afford maybe a 2-bed that needed a lot of work. And there, yes, you might be thinking, okay, but then you're buying above your means. But I think it is designed for young people who know that they're going to be climbing the corporate ladder, getting more salary. And then later down the line, you can get out of that scheme. And that's exactly what we did. The April 2021 to March 2023 government's Help to Buy equity scheme is still available, like I said, until March 2023. It has changed slightly. I will put a link down below of the England's government website where it says what areas is the max house price you can get. But in Wales, it used to be 300 grand and this has dropped to 250. And I think it's because of the reasons that I mentioned previously, that, you know, if you can afford a 300 grand house, do you really need to be using a government loan to help you on the ladder? Probably not, because you can get something pretty decent there. Again, you need to be a first-time buyer, which I think is important. You don't have to be any age, you just need to be a first-time buyer. You obviously can't have any rentals. You can't rent the property out, which I'll discuss further with the limitations. But yes, you need to put a 5% down, a new build home worth up to 600 grand in London. It's 250 in Wales, and I will put a link below for all the other areas in England. And then 20% of the property price is covered by either Help to Buy Wales or Help to Buy England. And then, yeah, as well, in London, you can actually borrow up to 40% of the house price, which again is so steep. But it's probably better than renting, I think, in my opinion. But I don't know in London. I don't know. I'm not an expert. The shared equity loan needs to be paid back in 25 years, which is probably a bit shorter than what your mortgage term is. But of course, you are free to pay off this any time in that 25-year period. You're probably thinking, hang on a minute, I haven't got 45 grand to pay back. But there are other ways that you can do this. You can, if your salary increases, you can borrow more from your mortgage company and then they can pay off Help to Buy, and then you'll have a bigger mortgage. So you've just got that one loan, which is probably a little bit cheaper, and you can extend it up to 35 years, which is what we were going to do before we moved. And that is a very key point, is that actually after 5 years, you then have to start paying back the interest on that government loan. So realistically, you want to get out of it before the 5 years. So I've got an example here. So say you bought the house for 200 grand, you borrowed 20%, which is 40 grand. After 5 years, you'll then have to start paying £58 a month back to Help to Buy. And you're not even paying off anything here. It is literally just the interest. So with that being said, I would say you really want to think about what you're going to do ready for that 5-year mark. Are you going to remortgage? Are you going to sell? Or are you going to pay it off with a lump sum? You might have had some inheritance by then, anything. I wouldn't advise that, but I'm not an advisor at all, but that's not what I would do with my money if I could. But yeah, just think about, you know, as soon as you get into Help to Buy, you want to be thinking about how we're going to get out of it in that 5 years' time. And what you've got to really, really remember with Help to Buy is that it's 20% of the property's current value. So we borrowed 20% when it was 225. Obviously the market moved forward. We sold just after the height of COVID and the prices were up, which was great for us. But we did have to pay back an additional £7,000 to Help to Buy. Of course, that does seem steep and some people may think, oh, that's not worth it. But then we did profit off that much more than they did. So in that sense, it is worth it because we might not have got that much profit if we just bought a 1-bed flat in town. It probably wouldn't have gone up that much in price. But yeah, so the profit that we got from that sale was more than Help to Buy got. And then that allowed us to be able to put a bigger deposit down on a house in an area that we really wanted to be in. So I think in that sense, it's definitely worth it. You've just got to be educated on what happens when you sell, and then you won't be left disappointed. So yeah, we knew we were going to have to pay them back some money. We knew it was around £7,000. Obviously you don't pay that out of your own money. It comes from the sale, so you don't really have to see it. It's not as if you've got to go through your pennies and give them £7,000. It all happens in conveyancing. You don't see the money, you just see the money coming back to you. Yes, it's annoying, but would you have got that house without Help to Buy in the first place? No. You might have just been taking advantage of the scheme, which is totally fine. But for people who are first-time buyers, they're young, they can't afford something as nice as that really. If you buy right in the right area, I believe that this is a great scheme for you. Help to Buy is extremely annoying. So where I said, for an example, earlier in the video that my friend had a bad experience, things like this can happen if somebody, if you bought with a friend or you bought with a partner and you break up, or you and your friend want to sell or change the name, there is a long process involved. Help to Buy are awkward, they make things harder, and every time you speak to them, you've usually got to pay. So that is the limitation there. So in her instance, she needed to sell. It wasn't selling because it was so close to the purchase date, and there were plenty of other houses being built brand new on the estate. So they were having that limitation there, plus the profit wasn't really there. So it could have cost them money to sell rather than making any money. But yeah, eventually the name was changed and she got out of that, and thank God she was totally, she could turn her back on it. But the problem with that estate is they were building so many houses that there wasn't that sort of desirability there. It was so easy to get a property there. So I think that's where the difference where we bought, there was only a certain amount of houses being built in an up and coming area. So I'd say just pick your area wisely, really look at your situation. Are you in a stable situation? Same with buying a house, really. So all in all, we had a positive experience with Help to Buy. The conveyancing was extremely annoying, but I'm going to do a separate video on how we got out of Help to Buy, what we had to do, what you need to expect, and yeah, and would I do it again? Stay tuned for the next video because that is what I'm going to discuss. So yeah, if you're in the process of thinking about buying Help to Buy, I'd say go for it, but just really, really understand, read, learn, look at your situation. Are you on your own? Are you with a partner? Do you hate your partner but you're buying a house anyway? Things like that. You really want to make sure that you're not just rushing in to Help to Buy. It is kind of like something that you want to do short term. You want to get in, and I would say want to get out after 5 years. Doesn't mean you have to get out the house. You just need to get out of that equity loan. Okay, so if you like this video, then make sure you subscribe because I'm going to be doing getting out of Help to Buy from my experience in the next video. Thanks.